We're on what is today known as Caladesi Island. In the late 18th century, it was known as Hog Island, which was a combination of what is now Honeymoon Island and Caladesi Island. A hurricane came through in the early 20th century and separated the two. Caladesi Island is a misnomer to the extent that it is not in and of itself an island. It is connected to Clearwater Beach, which is an island. So in that sense, it is an island. Before that, well, long before that, in pre-Columbian, prehistoric times, this was a Tocobaga site, village site. My understanding is that they've unearthed 33 body skeletons, Tocobaga interments, and of course there are more. I mean, there have to be more. I can see right through these mangroves over here that there are mounds. So this is a huge mound place, and of course, as we know, many of these barrier islands were either constructed by the Indians or used extensively by the Indians, or both. In this case, this was a burial mound. I'm sure it was a ceremonial mound and a midden as well. The reason why we're here today is we are standing in the midst of the ruins of the Henry Scharrer Homestead. First of all, we know about Henry Scharrer. We are indebted to his daughter, Myrtle Betts. She was born in the late 19th century here, or maybe in Dunedin Hospital, but I mean, this is where she was conceived and raised, etc. I don't know if she was actually born on this homestead or not. But at 87 years of age, she decided to write down her life story in a book, a fairly short book called Yesteryear I Lived in Paradise, I think is the correct name of it. I don't have it. I've read it. But everything we know, almost everything we know about life here, is that we're indebted to her for that. So thank you. So many of these places we come to, we just see, oh, this is really cool. Somebody used to live here, but we know nothing about them. We know a lot about this guy because of her. Henry Scharrer came to this country in the 1800s, 1880s, and knocked around for about 5 years up north and in the Midwest. Decided to come down to Tampa, buy a sailboat, and sail to South America. So he bought his sailboat in Tampa. He took it out and was, running it around and checking it out. A storm came up. He pulled into what is now Dunedin Pass, which at that time was an actual pass. It was an actual separation between Clearwater Beach and here. And came in behind, I guess, what is now St. Joseph's Sound, and found safe harbor. Next morning, he found his boat run aground, got off, checked it out, fell in love with it, and decided to homestead here. He homesteaded over 150 acres. Right behind the camera, off to what is my left, I can see water through the trees, and it's not very far. It's fairly close. So we're on the peninsula end of Caladesi Island, and this was called is now called Scharrer's Bayou. St. Joseph's Sound is behind me, and he built a home out of wood, but the basis of it was tabby coquina construction. And what the camera is resting on right now is, and we'll see in a moment, is the fireplace, or the remains of the fireplace. And this was his main cabin where he lived his life. There are some, I see some metal objects. I see a wooden object. It might have been a railing of some sort. I'm not sure that is from here. We do know that other people homesteaded out here, but no one permanently. Also, he raised hogs, bees, he fished, oystered, and we know that from news accounts of the time that people came out here and basically stole from him, harassed him, things like that. His daughter was born in I think 98 and left here permanently in 34. She got married and left here in 1934, and lived on the mainland. He went soon after, passed away, and never came back. This is just Caladesi Island. My understanding right now, what is now Caladesi Island, is 650 acres roughly. So there would have been more people north of here, and then beyond that, on what is now Honeymoon Island, that was all part of this. So there would have been more area up there. We're not saying that this was tremendously populated, but there were people that came and went and had stakes out here. Maybe not necessarily ownership, but certainly stakes. He homesteaded, I'm assuming under the Homesteading Act, Armed Occupation Act, even though this was many years later. I'm assuming that was still in effect. I'm looking down because this is rattlesnake country. I've seen one already, and they're supposed to be everywhere, and I trust the signs on this one. So he homesteaded it, made it his home. People came out to visit him. He was a gracious host, etc. There's something called the harp tree, which is a tree that a twin pine tree that is grown to resemble a harp. That's famous in photographs. In 0002, 04, in that area, according to an archaeological study that the state of Florida submitted, there were numerous objects made of metal, numerous metal objects out here that were being vandalized, and so they took them away. I guess put them in the museum in Tallahassee. I mean, I'm sure they didn't throw them away. They've got them somewhere kept. So that is basically the story of this place. You can get here a couple of ways. I walked up from Clearwater Beach. That's how we've always done it. There's a ferry that comes over. I'm not a ferry guy. I'm more likely to kayak it myself. Although to my everlasting shame, I have taken a ferry once. So this is what we came to find. We're indebted to several bloggers for exact location. This isn't on a map. They don't tell you about it. They don't put it on a map. You kind of got to come down this one road and boom, here it is. Although there are signs, the DAR, which I'm still trying to figure out what the DAR has in terms of interest in this place, but thank God for them. They put up a plaque. Somebody else put up a nice sign, a little kiosk detailing what went down out here. Myrtle Betts, Henry Scharrer, Myrtle Betts descendants still live in the area. My understanding is there's a granddaughter, great-granddaughter, and a great-great-granddaughter who are active in keeping the memory alive. So we're going to take a look at the actual ruins now. It's really cool. Try to be slow, fairly slow. Anyway. Running into your rattlesnakes. Okay, so this is the fireplace. Slow, slow, slow. Keep it slow. I don't know what the heck this was. Some kind of something for a post. Held something. Apparently there are outbuildings here. I'm not sure how much of exploration we're going to do in that regard. I was out here years ago and I saw the harp tree. I read the book. Of course, it fascinated me. It has, you'd have to be dead for it not to fascinate you, but it didn't dawn on me till some years later, actually, that if the guy built out here, wherever people live, there's got to be some remains of some kind, almost exclusively. There's just got to be something left over from people having lived here. And that's when I started looking into it, and sure enough, I read an article about a guy named, I think his last name was Calhoun. He's been a ranger out here for 30 years, or probably more now. This was a few years ago. But he is like the man out here. And they had a picture of him standing in front of this fireplace. So automatically, boom, here I come. We don't know. We do know that the wood from this site that was constructed the guy's house. This was his foundation. This is a footer essentially, and the floor. He would have had walls and a ceiling, a roof, and that would have been made out of wood. Which, as I recall from the book, he sailed over and got wood and brought it back and worked. Sailed over and got wood, brought it back and worked. His daughter, when she was 7 or 9, depending on which accounts are believed, was rowing from this island across St. Joseph Sound to Dunedin to go to school and back. And when you look at it on a map, I mean, we are on a barrier island right here. We're on a quote-unquote beach. But this is very, very short by comparison to, say, Anclote, or I can't even think of any of the others, but it's closer, I guess, even than Clearwater to the mainland. Clearwater Beach, it's very, very close. I mean, you couldn't throw a football across it, but it's not like it's 10 miles down the road or somewhere where you couldn't see the horizon on either side. I mean, she rowed her little rowboat over there to go to school, and her mother passed away when she was 6 or 7, depending on accounts. And she became, quote unquote, the right hand of her father. And learned how to do everything out here. She grew up out here. She went to school. She was educated. She lived till she was 96. He lived till he was in mid-70s, late 70s. So they were hardy people, except for the mother, who passed away from some sort of illness. So this is it. This is what we came to see. I'm going to go look at the signs here real quick. I don't want to say this is all there is of it, but this is what there is of it right here. Try to do this slowly without too much herky-jerky. See, that rattlesnake was not. It was very real. Okay, and this, if you want to read this more, you can either go online or check out. Slow the video. I'm sure it comes out better on a bigger screen. Try to get this correctly here. Oops. Go peek around down here a little bit and see, can we find any remains of outbuildings. We had hog pens, beehives. There wouldn't be anything left of a beehive, though. Well, that right there is basically the end. I see a couple of stones in there. This is not a stone place. So we're going to shut it down and photograph it up real good, and then just head on back. I mean, that's what we came out here to do, basically. The harp tree we've seen it before. It's cool. There's some blogs that I read that said it's near the cabin. It is nowhere near the cabin unless you know, near is a very loose relative term. It's down that way a good ways. So we're on the peninsula. We're on the end of Caladesi Island. So this guy had the foresight to not only homestead out here, but to do it where he was on the end. He wasn't going to have any left-hand neighbors, you know, southern neighbors. He was all, anybody that would have come out here after him would have done so further north. And that would be cool. It was like a campsite, you know, you can pick your corner. You can have some people around you, but you can minimize it. So that's about it for here. Hope this wasn't too shaky. Jeez.